in a number of places, but because of the price points to get in. So interesting thing about Dustin's story is he started investing in 2006, which was before the 2008 crash, as everyone knows.
Inflation's hurting a lot of people, but it doesn't hurt me because my rents go up with inflation. It just goes. So I just literally stay the same.
I'm going to try to match your energy because you're super juiced up for this. And I can tell your pistons are firing left and right here with like so many things to say. So
I know I need to be an investor. What was it about real estate investing that sparked your interest? And then how did you learn? Because to know you want to do something, it's different than the how-to and actually putting the pieces together.
I literally did not work. It was the easiest business to run, meaning I didn't even run it. I had other people do it. And I made the most money, and I'm creating generational wealth until I sell it.
The 0 to 10 to 30 units, if you're buying properties that are $50,000 to $150,000, you may be able to do that a lot faster, right? That's how you're able to acquire it.
Property manager was stealing from you. Can you talk about how you uncovered this, what they were actually stealing, and then how people can avoid this? Because I think a lot of people are excited to get property managers. Welcome back to the Weekly Juice. As always, Ryan and Corey here with another episode for you. Today, we interviewed Dustin Heiner. He's a real estate investor that was able to retire from his corporate 9-to-5 job from the government, actually, at age 37. He's got an interesting story and talks about how he realized the importance of building up passive income and building a financial foundation outside of his 9-to-5, because he was let go from the government job, which he never thought you always hear like, what's the most stable thing is government, right? The one thing that's not going to go away. And he worked in tech and government and still lost his job. So that's how he kind of had the inception of the light bulb went off like, hey, I need to think of something else. And that something else was, let's invest in real estate.
Yeah. The light bulb kind of went off for him, as you said. He had his 4th child. So he's like, I have to provide for my family. And he realized that he couldn't leave that up to the other people his boss or his boss's boss's boss to decide his fate. And he just wasn't, he kind of broke away from the matrix, if you will. He ended up buying long distance real estate from California to Ohio. Ohio is where he started buying real estate. Now he buys in Ohio. He mentioned Texas and Florida, in a number of places, but because of the price points to get in. So interesting thing about Dustin's story is he started investing in 2006, which was before the 2008 crash, as everyone knows. But he says that his strategy has not changed that much since 2006 to now. Like he's still able to buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat, do it using the BRRRR method. And then also using some creative strategies that he mentions in the episode. But the fact that he doesn't buy for appreciation and buys for cash flow is talking about how he has this kind of defense that he plays, and he's just going to hand off his buy and hold long-term portfolio to his kids. So he doesn't really care that much about the fluctuation in the market. And he said he's getting ready to buy again. So he teaches a lot of people. He teaches a course. He has coaching. So he's really in the game and he's active, and he has students that are learning from him. So
stick around to the end. Dustin will give you a link and a number to text if you want his free course, and hopefully you'll get a bunch of value out of it. So if you're interested in becoming a real estate investor yourself, don't want to pay an arm and a leg and go to a conference and all that, you can start with Dustin's free course. Without further ado, let's bring in Dustin. Dustin, officially welcome to the Weekly Juice podcast. Corey and I are so excited to have you on the show, and we look forward to sharing your story, man.
What's up, guys? Thank you so much for having me on the show. Yeah, I really love real estate investing. And it's more so what it affords me to do in my life. Like the real estate investing allowed me to become successfully unemployed, which means found a way to make money to provide for myself and my family without working that dead end job, or like to call it the just over broke job. And, go to the gym and hang out and come on podcasts and talk to great guys like you about real estate investing. So I really appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I said this pre-recording, but we're excited to A, share your story, but B, use actionable advice to share with our listeners. And a lot of people want to be successfully unemployed as you are, right? You just mentioned the JOB, just over broke. It's funny. I think people are feeling it a lot with inflation today too. And just how much everything costs. They're like, wow, I definitely am going to have to work until I'm 50, 59 and a half, 60, right? So hopefully you can give us some insight on how we can all escape the quote unquote rat race here in 9 to 5 and build passive income to help supply us for the future. So We're excited.
Absolutely. I love passive income. In fact, I'm an investor. That's literally what I do. I'm an investor, but then found out that I love helping other people. So, with the podcast and everything, but quickly, because I know we're jumping a lot of stuff, but I'll definitely say inflation's hurting a lot of people, but it doesn't hurt me because my rents go up with inflation. It just goes. So I just literally stay the same, even though rents go up, inflations go up at the same time. So we're going to get into everything. Like it's such a win-win-win if you invest in real estate, at least the right way. At least I like to get passive income on all my properties.
Cool. I'm going to try to match your energy because you're super juiced up for this, and I can tell your pistons are firing left and right here with like so many things to say. So let's start out here. Like, walk us through the story or the inception point that you were like, wow, I need to get into real estate investing. I want to become an investor, and this is my way out of the 9-to-5.
Totally. Yeah. So I'll fast forward to the very end. When I was 37 years old, I was blessed to be able to quit my job and become successful unemployed, but it didn't start that way. So I'll quickly go back to the beginning. So just like everybody, I was taught, just like we're all taught, what we do when we go to school, we get good grades. And then you get those good grades, you go to college, get more good grades, get in thousands and thousands of dollars into debt. And then you take that piece of paper, that degree that they give you, and you go from company to company, try to find a career, then work 40 plus years of your life and hopefully retire and live on what you managed to save that entire time. We're working that just over broke job. So I'm doing that exact same thing. But at the same time, I've always been entrepreneurial, starting businesses and that sort of thing. And so when I was younger, I had a newspaper route. That was when I was 13 years old. You ride around on a bike with newspapers and throw them at 5 a.m. and bang them on garage doors, waking people up. I had a graphic and website design company. I had a skateboard manufacturing business. I even had a convenience store and a pizzeria. I literally started from scratch because I've been entrepreneurial. But at the same time, these weren't doing it. It wasn't where I was actually going to be able to make money to quit my job. So I got the most secure, stable job I could ever think of. I was working in California for a local county government doing IT or technology. So California's got to go away. Government's never going to go away, as well as technology doesn't seem like it's going to go away. So I got the most stable job, 9-to-5 stable job ever. But this is what really shoved me or catapulted me into real estate investing. So I had these businesses. I was working a 9-to-5 job, sit down desk job. And my wife and I started having kids, and I bought my first rental property along with working and having businesses. And with that one rental property, I remember that first check, it was like $317, like exactly. And I thought, my goodness, it's from my property manager. It rents minus expenses. I got passive income. I thought, I need to be an investor. Like, this is amazing. I didn't do anything. I made this much money. But you know what happens? Life started getting in the way. We started having more kids. Eventually, this is the story. So eventually my fourth child was born. And when she was born, I went on paternity leave. That's where the dad stays home with the mom, changes poopy diapers and bonds with the baby and all that good stuff. And I go off work for 2 weeks and then I get back to work. And in that week, I go back to work on a Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon. I get a call from my boss's secretary, like the top dog. And she says, Dustin, would you please come to the office? I said, sure. And then hung up the phone. And I paused for a second. I thought, why in the world are they calling me to the office? Like, this doesn't sound good. In fact, I've seen plenty of movies. Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon is not a good sign. From that, I started remembering a couple months before I went on paternity leave, there was some rumors or some rumbling going on in the county that there could potentially be layoffs. And I immediately shook off. I said, there's no way. I've got plenty of seniority here, 12, 13 years. My bosses think I do a great job. No way. So I shake it off, but I get up. And I walk down the hallway to my boss's office. Now, guys, this hallway isn't very long. In fact, it's kind of short. But every single step that I take, it feels like the hallway gets longer and longer and longer. It feels like my feet become lead bricks because the weight of potentially losing my job just comes crashing down on me. Well, I get down the hallway and I turn the corner and I see my boss's door. His door's closed and I see his secretary there, super sweet, nice old lady. And she looks at me kind of sheepishly grinning, trying to console me with her eyes because she knows everything about what's going on. I know nothing about what's going on. And she says, Dustin, would you please have a seat? So I go and I sit down and I start thinking about my life. If I get laid off right now, everything that I was taught, that whole plan to, go to school, get grades and all that sort of stuff. If I get laid off right now, does that mean that I literally wasted my life doing this? And then I thought, oh my goodness, we just had our fourth child. If I can't provide for them, what does that make me as a father? Does that make me a failure as a father? Does that make me a failure as a husband, as a man trying to provide for his family? Well, as I'm sitting there, my hands get all clammy. My forehead gets all sweaty because the nerves are just crushing me. Well, the door to my boss's office opens up, and out walks a lady, a coworker of mine, with a piece of paper in her hands. She's noticeably distraught. She's noticeably upset, not necessarily crying, but you can tell her world has been rocked. She passes by me, and my boss says, "Dustin, would you please come to the office?" So I get up and I go into my boss's office and I get laid off. And this is the government. Remember, nobody gets fired or laid off from the government, but I did. So if it happened to me, this is the reason why I tell the story, so that you would learn from my mistake. Well, I take that layoff notice and I go back to my desk and I sit down. And right after getting laid off, I realized two things sitting there. Well, the first thing, I need to get another job. I need to be able to provide for my family. So I was really, really blessed. Praise the Lord, to find another job in the same county, whole different department. It worked out really, really well. So check, got a new job. Everything worked out well. The second thing, sitting in that chair, just getting laid off, I realized that I need to make sure that this never, ever happens to me again. I need to make sure that nobody has the ability to take away my ability to feed my family. So right then and there, I realized that whenever anybody would ask me the question, "Dustin, what do you do?" I would reply, we always get that question, but I replied with my job. I work for IT at the local county government. I'm basically projecting my value of myself coming from my job. No. My value doesn't come from my job. My value comes from my God, from myself, and from my family. So right then and there, I realized that I must be an investor. In fact, remember, I wanted to be an investor, but life just got in the way, kids and kids and kids. Eventually, I realized sitting there on that desk that it may so happen that I have a job, but now that is my part-time job. I am a full-time investor. So I started telling everybody I am a real estate investor. So I'll quickly fast forward the story. I started buying property after property after property, each one making me a minimum of $250 a month in passive income from every property. Eventually, at 30 plus properties, I realized, my goodness, why am I working here? Even though I was making $75,000 a year here at this job, I'm losing money. So last part of the story, I went to my new boss after I had enough properties. I went to my new boss and I said, "Hey boss, here's your 2 weeks notice. Like, I'm laying you off." And you're a great boss and everything, just jokingly. But I said, "Here, I'm quitting." And he says, "Dustin, what are you going to do?" And I said, "I don't have to do anything. I own real estate. It works for me. So passively, I make money." So the last part of the story, if you remember that hallway that I walked down that got short hallway got longer and longer and longer. Well, I walked from my office the very last time. It was a 1.5 mile walk to my car. I've done it 1,000 times. I worked in downtown, so I was too cheap to pay for parking. But I've taken this walk 1,000 times. I felt like I was walking on clouds because I knew I would never, ever need a job again. And here's the realization as I'm walking away from my job was that I'm now being paid for the value that I bring instead of the hour that I worked. And so everybody listening, you need to realize this. Your boss is not paying you what you're worth or what your true value is. And this is how you will absolutely know this is true. Your boss is paying you just enough to keep you working without quitting, but not so much money that takes money out of their pocket. If you got paid for what you're worth, they would go out of business. So what you need to do is start realizing your value doesn't come from your job. Your value comes from inside of you. So I'll pause the story because you guys probably got plenty of questions.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's amazing. And I think it's kind of everyone's dream in a way, like of what a lot of people that are listening to the show, what they really want to do. So I appreciate you sharing that. I think I want to talk more about the how to. You glossed over like I bought 30 properties, right? So people are sitting there like, whoa, okay. If Dustin can do it, maybe I can do it, and maybe you have some tools in your tool belt that you're able to share. So first of all, I want to back up a little bit and say I know that you bought your first rental property, but then you said, I know I need to be an investor. Or I know I need to be an investor. What was it about real estate investing that sparked your interest? And then how did you learn? Because to know you want to do something, it's different than the how to and actually putting the pieces together.
I love that question. And the reason why is because I learned, but at the same time, I learned the wrong way and then I had to figure out the right way. So for me, what I knew, and the reason why, well, the first part of it, the reason why I went with real estate as opposed to these other businesses, all these other businesses were great businesses, but it were so hard. When I bought one rental property, it worked for me without me working. And I'll quickly jump to, with all the properties that I own, I don't work all that much. In fact, a lot of people have heard of the book, The 4-Hour Work Week. Well, I think working 4 hours a week is for suckers. I don't want to work 4 hours a week. I don't even want to work 4 hours a month. I only maybe work 30 minutes a month. I just grab all the property management statements from all my properties, make sure everything looks good, and then put them away and go back to play with my kids. So for me, really, the reason why I knew that real estate investing was the right way was because I had an automatic business. I had other people running the business for me. With that, I got passive income. I literally did not work. It was the easiest business to run, meaning I didn't even run it. I had other people do it. And I made the most money, and I'm creating generational wealth. Until I sell it, I will literally make money over and over and over again. And on top of that, what I've saw with real estate investing, getting to 30 plus properties now into syndications and all that sort of stuff, what I do now is in being an investor, is I do buy and hold properties. And in order to scale the business, what I knew that I needed to do was build the business. But I'll quickly, your question of, how did I learn how to do it? So this was in 2006. In 2006, I was watching TV. It was like, I don't know, late night TV. It was one of those late night infomercials. Some guy came on, real estate guru, said, hey, we're coming to your town, a free 2-hour seminar. We're going to come and teach you how to invest in real estate. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go. I didn't know anything. So I said, I'm going to go. So I went to that 2-hour seminar. It was horrible. It was literally a sales pitch. And this is a 2-hour sales pitch, hype and everything. And then they said, okay, now run to the back. It's normally $50,000 for a program, but it's only $1,000 today. So I ran to the back thinking, this is going to be great. Ran to the back. It was a 2-day seminar. That was all more hype for their $80,000 course, their $100,000 course, their $30,000. It was ridiculous. But in that, they taught me, this is what they taught me. They taught me the wrong way. And I did this wrong way. And with that, my property manager started stealing from me within like 6 months. It was horrible, but I didn't let that stop me. Let me quickly give you the wrong way of what I learned, but easily forget it. I'll quickly gloss over because it's so fast. It's silly how they teach this, but they say, find a property anywhere in the country, and then you run the numbers. That means you make sure your expenses are lower than your rents, and you want to make your $50 a month in passive income, but you'll get appreciation. And that's what you're going to be investing for, which I'll pause and say, I don't invest for appreciation. In fact, I only use appreciation to get the equity out to buy more properties, but I will literally give these properties to my kids. With that, they then say, okay, $50 a month in passive income, you get appreciation. And then they say, spend thousands of dollars to buy the property, then spend thousands of dollars to fix up the property, then find a tenant to live in there, and then find a property manager. Well, in my business model, it's just about backwards. In fact, like I said, I did this way, and my property manager started selling for me in 6 months. And then I realized, first, before I get there, I thought I could just give up. Like I could just think, oh, this doesn't work. But I knew it did work. I was just following somebody else's plan that they probably just read out a book and was just trying to regurgitate it. What I realized, though, was that people have been doing real estate investing for, hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of years. Now, there has to be a way. So if you remember, at the beginning, I said I was very entrepreneurial and I love starting businesses. So I approached it from a business mindset. And what the gurus will tell you, you buy one property and that property is your business. No. What we do as investors is we build a business and that business owns properties. And so what I realized was I need to approach this from a business mindset instead of what these other people were saying. So what I did was I built the entire business first and then bought the properties. I'll give you a quick example of what that looks like. So if you're going to start a convenience store, candy bars, soda machines, and all that good stuff, well, you're not going to sign a lease on a location, open the doors, and set a box of candy bars in there on the ground. No, you wouldn't do that. You go out of business in like 2 seconds. But what you would do is you would build the business first. You'd get the gondolas. Those are the shelving units that you put all the candy bars on. You get the countertops, the cold storage, bank accounts, cash registers, insurance, employees, everything in the business before you buy any inventory. Same thing with real estate investing. You build the entire business anywhere in the country, and then you buy that property. That property is your inventory that you then put into the business. That's how I was able to scale my business so quickly. I think it was like maybe 6 or 7 years of me buying property after property. Eventually, I had 30 plus properties. I was able to quit. So all that, I did it the wrong way, but then I figured out there has to be a right way. And then over time, buying property after property, I eventually figured out how to scale that business, because if I buy one property that I think that property is my business, then how do you scale? You just got to do it all over again. Instead of doing that, you build the entire business so that it runs itself. And all you got to do is find another property and put it into the business. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. I think it's interesting. We were saying before the episode that we didn't invest in 2006, like when you started, which is, we were in our teens, right, in high school. And we hear all the negativity about the crash, but it's so interesting that there were people out there that were kind of preaching this appreciation, like just buy for appreciation because the market was doing so well back then. And it's scary to think how many people fell for it. And I think contributed to the crash because so many people that actually weren't real estate investors at all were buying properties that they really weren't qualified to even own based on the bank financing that they were able to obtain. So it's interesting that there really were like negative people out there preying on people to buy a course, buy a property, thinking it's going to appreciate. And I think now you see a lot more people talk about buying for cash flow, more so as a defensive mechanism to be able to reap the rewards of the offense, which would be the real estate appreciation. So you said you bought for cash flow. Were there specific areas that you looked at? And can you talk about not only the areas and the criteria or the buy box, but like the actual how to? Like did you use your own money to start? Did you at a certain point start using other people's money? Because 6 to 7 years to 30 units is pretty awesome. And it'd be something that we're kind of on track to do as well.
Yeah, thanks, man. So when I first got started investing, I lived in California. This is 2006. I couldn't buy for passive income. And so what was instinctively for me to get passive income to quit my job, to be successfully unemployed, that was my goal. I didn't care about appreciation. It was just passive income. That instinctive thing of trying to replace my income helped me when there was that crash because I wasn't going for appreciation. In fact, I knew so many other investors. You heard all the time of builders and investors, everybody going bankrupt. I know lots of people now who are investing now. They said, man, in 2008, I went bankrupt. So it's just what happened. So I was just saved because I just literally want to make money every single month to be able to pay my bills. So with that, living in California, I actually flew to Ohio and I realized, hey, all real estate is local. Like that term, local. That's what real estate investor or agents like to say. Like, hey, the number one thing is location. No, absolutely not. In fact, I'm an investor. Everywhere is location. In fact, just because I'm not going to live in that city doesn't mean that other people won't. In fact, just like that convenience store analogy, you might have 100 different candy bars. You might not even, maybe only one of those, but you're not the customer. Your customers are the ones that are going to buy and eat these other candy bars. Same thing with real estate investing. So in California, and I don't do this anymore, but I flew to Ohio. Now I literally don't fly anywhere. Any new place I invest, in fact, all my students, we don't even fly anywhere because we hire the experts who are there on the ground. They're the ones that need to make sure that everything's running right, not us. Like I flew to Ohio, saw one city, and I thought, okay, I know what I'm talking about. It was nothing. I was literally there for like a day and I had no clue what I was doing. It just made me feel better. Now I don't fly anywhere. So and where I started investing was in Ohio, and I invested for passive income. Now, when you're thinking of what types of homes, I'll give you, I love giving principles, or at least business principles that I put in my business and teach my students. So I love cookie cutter type homes. These are homes that everybody either wants to rent or buy. So if you needed an exit, you can have somebody buy it. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,200 to 1,600 square feet, not too small that families won't want to live in there, not too big that there's extra toilets and extra walls to paint and electrical and all that sort of stuff. And also 2-car garage would be great if you can find those as well. But I love finding these homes that are lower priced, but then I can make, and here's the criteria for me, this is how I was able to scale to quit my job, was $250 a month in passive income. And that's the minimum. I have some properties that I bought back in 2006, 7, and 8 that are making me $700, $800, $900, even $1,000 a month in passive income because over time, rents just go up. Like I said at the very beginning, inflation goes up, doesn't affect me because my rents go up. So what I realized in order to quit my job was if I bought one property that made me $250 a month, that is $3,000 a year in passive income. Well, it's easy. Just start scaling it from there. If I bought 10 properties at $250 a month as a minimum, that's $2,500 a month, $30,000 a year without working. 20 properties is $5,000 a month, $60,000 a year without working. And I just realized it's just a matter of time to scale into the business. But I needed to have that area, the city that I was going to invest in. And with that, build the entire business. So for me, Ohio was great. Now I currently invest in Ohio, Texas, and Arizona. But my students, we invest all over the country. And here's the key that I love to hire experts. So like Zillow's not an expert. Redfin, Realtor.com, Trulia, like those are websites. They're databases that try to, make money. Who are the experts? Those are the people literally working there on the ground, the right property managers, the contractors, inspectors, insurance agents, realtors, plumbers, roofers, like those are the experts. And let me give you a quick example. So I get people that come to me and say, well, Dustin, I bought a property and then I did everything the gurus said. And I tried to find a property manager and every single property manager said they would not manage a property because they would get shot in that area because it's a bad area. Well, imagine doing that, buying thousands and thousands of dollars, and then you cannot actually manage it. You don't have any to manage it. You can't make money. It's no longer an asset. It's a liability. How much better would it be if you built the business first? And before you went and bought the property, you call up your property manager and say, hey, property manager, I'm looking at this property. I haven't bought it yet. I'm looking at this property. I don't know, number 1 Happy Street, is an address. I'm looking at buying this property. Tell me how much I could rent it for. Tell me what type of clientele it's going to have, what type of vacancy factor it's going to have, and will you manage it? If you get then in that call, well, no, I wouldn't manage it because I'll get shot. Then you got a great answer because you won't buy that property because you don't want that property. How much better is if you have the right people who are experts there on the ground that are actually going to tell you, this is a great property or this area, and this is how much you could rent it for, and this is how much, what type of vacancy factor. They're going to give you that information before you buy the property. And when you do that, that's how you can scale the business. Because like I said, you have a functioning business, the right people that are going to be doing the work, and you just reaping the benefit. And so what I love is finding the right property manager in the right city. So quickly getting back to the idea of type of property, I like $250 a month in passive income. A lot of people talk about cap rates and return, like ROI and all that sort of stuff, like all these different formulas. I'm not that smart. And so I just go with that cash flow. But here's the principle. As little money out of my pocket to buy the property, as little mortgage as I can to buy the property on top of that. So a little money out of my pocket, then as small as mortgage I can get, that makes me $250 a month that somebody else would manage. If you keep those principles in mind, think of if you put $50,000 into a property as a down payment, well, that's a lot of money. It'd be better if you only put $20,000. Well, okay, that's just keep that in mind as low money out of pocket, but then also a mortgage. If you bought a home for $500,000, got a $500,000 mortgage and only made $250 a month, well, if it's not rented for 1 month, if somebody moves out, you have to turn it over. There's your entire profit for the entire year. What are you going to feed your family on? So what we try to do is I love finding homes like 50,000 to 150,000. That's a good sweet spot. Midwest is fantastic right now, down in the Carolinas, into Florida, a lot of fantastic areas. In fact, just last week, one of my students, he bought 2 properties that are each making over $250 a month in passive income. He closed on the same day. I want to say it was like Memphis, Tennessee, if I can remember correctly, but it might not be. It might be like someplace in Indiana. But anyways, all that to say, what we try to do is find the right types of homes and then make the right amount of passive income, as little money coming out of our pocket and as little of a mortgage as possible. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, sure. I think the question that I'm curious about is you specifically scaling your portfolio. Did you... you're mentioning that you were able to scale quickly. Did you use your own money to do that, to jump from the 0 to 10 to 30 units? If you're buying properties that are $50,000 to $150,000, you may be able to do that a lot faster, right? And that's how you're able to acquire. Is it your own money? Were you partnering with anybody? Were you using private money and then refinancing? What's the strategy there? Because I want to relate it to today as prices are so much higher. Maybe to see how that could work for somebody that's trying to do it now.
So think of all your options that you brought up. Yes to all of them. And so what I literally do is I recycle my money. So I'll start from the beginning, but then go through a couple properties so you can see how I do it. But the premise is recycling the money that I already have into properties, which means refinancing the property, pulling the equity out, paying off myself. Like if I buy it for cash, pull that money back out, put it in my pocket and use the leftover to buy the next property, using private money using hard money lenders, commercial loans, bundle loans, portfolio loans. I've even used signature loans. It's where you go into a bank and say, hey, can I just sign my signature? You give me money. They said, yeah, it's unsecured line of credit. And I've even used credit cards. It's advanced strategy. So you definitely need to know your business in order to do this. But I knew that my business would make money. So the first property I bought, I think we put $15,000. Like my wife and I just got married, and it was probably 6 months later. I said, "Hey, honey, I really want to start investing. Can I take all the money you managed to save?" Because I wasn't taught to save, so I actually had debt. But I said she had like $15,000. I said, "Can I take the money that you saved to invest?" And took a lot of work. Eventually, got her to approve it. From that, I recycled it over and over again. So I bought the first property, and we're investors. So we don't pay market value. We don't pay above market value. We try to get 10% off, 20% off of the asking price or of the market value. And trust me, you will find those properties. Even now, you can still find those where you capture equity. That's another way you make money. So passive income is the way you make money, capturing equity. So when you buy it for less than it's worth. So I did that, and I recycled the money. So in 2006, a lot of people have heard the term, the BRRRR method, the BRRRR. So you buy, rehab, rent it out, refinance, and repeat it. But basically, you just keep cycling that money over and over again. That's how I bought my first property, to the second property, and the third property. I kept recycling that money. I'd get a home equity line of credit. I would do a cash out refinance. I would do all of the above to buy the next property. So a lot of my students, what they would ask is, well, Dustin, they would say, should I do this or this or this? Like, should I use my money as a down payment for a property, or should I use it all as buy a house outright for $50,000 because that's all I have? Should I do that? Or should I get private money, or should I get hard money? And I'm like, no, you should literally use all of those for whatever deal comes your way, because you're not going to know what deal is going to come, and whatever it is that's going to be able to get this deal taken down. Think of it like, and remember, I just listed off a ton of different ways you can get financing. I've literally done all of them. In fact, I counted like 15 different ways of financing that I've done, and I've just listed off a bunch of them in order to buy properties. But think of it, if you're a contractor and you have a tool belt, and every single tool helps you to get the job done. Well, all these 15 different ways for me, I use them as tools. I can even combine them. Let's say I needed private money to get part of the down payment. I use conventional as well. And then I use hard money to fix up the property. And then I refinance to pull the cash back out. So we can use all these as creative ways to do it. We just need to know our business makes money. I'll quickly say this. You need to make sure, if you're going to do any of these tactics, like if you're going to get hard money, you need to know that you're making money. If you're going to buy with private money, you need to make sure you're going to making money. I'll make it as simple as possible. Let's say you're going to buy a candy bar for 50 cents, and without a shadow of a doubt, you can sell it for $1. Well, you would buy as many candy bars as you could because you'd be making 50 cents each candy bar, right? Well, with that, what if you did not have the 50 cents and you couldn't sell the candy bar because you don't have the candy bar? Now, what if you found somebody that it costs 25 cents to borrow the 50 cents to then sell it for $1? Well, that's only 75 cents out of your pocket. And it's not your pocket, it's somebody else's money. You make 25 cents from every single candy bar. Same thing with real estate investing. I don't buy a property unless it makes me $250 a month. I also don't buy a property unless it affords a property manager. A lot of people ask me the question, well, Dustin, how do you afford a property manager? I said, well, I don't have to get a job to get a property manager. I make sure that expense is accounted for before I buy the property. And you guys will definitely understand this. You guys are investors. So I don't pay my taxes on any of my properties. I don't pay my insurance. I don't pay my mortgage. I don't pay for repairs. I don't pay for my property managers. My tenants pay for all that. It just so happens the money comes into me and out to all the bills. But with that, I account for every single expense. And then another expense is my passive income of $250. So for me, bought that first property, then cashed out, refinance, pull out the next that money to then buy the second property. And I literally did over and over again. And a key for me too was sacrificing good things like, a trip to Hawaii or, vacations or eating out fancy dinners, because I knew every penny that did not go to properties that went to something else was a minute longer, an hour longer, a day, a week, a year longer that I have to work this dead end job. So I sacrificed to continually buy that next property over and over and over again.
Got it. So as an example for one of your properties, let's say you bought a property for $100,000. Let's say you needed 20% as the down payment. So you're saying that you would even go to the strategy of borrowing private money, $20,000 down. You're getting a loan for $80,000. And then you're so essentially you're using somebody else's money. You're in for no money in yourself. You borrow $50,000 from a hard money lender. The property appraises for $250,000, for example. You're able to pull that money out, pay back your hard money lender. You're able to then keep the mortgage, right? Or refinance the mortgage and then pay back your private money lender. That's how you're doing it. You're then taking that money on the refinance, able to pull some cash out, potentially go and do more deals. That sounds like kind of the formula. The question that I have for you is, the rebuttal that I would hear from people today is like, Dustin, it's really hard to do that in 2022. The prices are so high. Is the BRRRR method still effective? What do you say to those people, and what strategies are you, using now? Because in 2011, you could do this with your eyes closed, right? 2022, it's a little bit harder. Are you seeing that same kind of trend?
Absolutely. And a trend where people are saying that, but here's the thing. It's going to sound a little like aggressive, but they need to become investors. Investors do not buy it 100% of the value of the home, market value, or more. So the reason I get this question a lot, like, well, Dustin, there's a lot of investors. Does that create competition? I'm like, no, investors are not the competition. In fact, with all my coaching students, no, we're not the competition. Who is the competition? Homeowners. Homeowners are the reason why the prices just got skyrocketed the last couple of years. They're the reason why people were paying 10, 20% over asking price, because they're not looking at it as a business. We as investors, we don't pay market value. We pay for less. Now, people may be asking the question, well, it's a seller. It was, I know it's kind of leveling off. It was a seller's market. Now, if it was a seller's market, that means people are holding out and getting more and more and more. Well, that's not every single seller. There are so many sellers. In fact, my students are doing it all the time. I'll give you one example. In 2020, late 2021, so about a year ago, I had a student of mine. He's a pastor in Sacramento, doesn't have much money. And so we figured out a way to actually get him to invest without any of his own money, because he didn't have any. So he had a home he bought 5 or 6 years ago. We got a home equity line of credit. With that home equity line of credit, we bought, I think it was in Georgia. I want to say it was Georgia. But anyways, he bought a house with his home equity line of credit. So no money of his own money in the deal, bought it. And they were asking, I think, $120,000. But one thing I love to do with my students is teach them how to negotiate and actually negotiate with them. We negotiated down to like $80,000. So that's $40,000 literally saved. That's a penny saved, penny earned. That's $40,000 saved. With that, he fixed it up, made it worth, I think it was like $150,000, refinanced it, pulled all of his own cash out, or the home equity line of credit, paid off his home equity line of credit, put more money into his pocket to buy the next property. And then he also has his home equity line of credit to buy the next property, but he has now a 30-year fixed mortgage on this property. So if you know what you're doing, there are so many different ways to actually buy the property for less than it's worth, to be able to refinance and pull the cash back out to buy the next property.
Cool. I have a quick one, and I don't want to blow past this because we talked property management, but you mentioned that you found out your property manager was stealing from you. Can you talk about how you've uncovered this, what they were actually stealing, and then how people can avoid this? Because I think a lot of people are excited to get property managers, but for us, as we mentioned pre-recording, we have a property manager in New Jersey that it just seems to us that we have a big enough spread from our expenses to our income that we should be at much higher cash flow, and we're just not seeing it. We're seeing, even for a plumber to go out, it's way more expensive, or just like a quick fix in our eyes is way just more expensive. So I don't know if this is them, cutting themselves into the deal or not, and if this is the same experience you had, but we would love to hear it. And I think it's could broaden the horizons for other people just to, be aware of what to look for.
Yeah. So if one quick way or a quick thing to do is look at your property management agreement and see if they add 10% on to any repairs. A lot of property managers do that. In fact, I don't use those ones that do that. It's like, you're just making a phone call. How do you get 10% on top of that? That's just silly. So check that, number one. Number two, how I knew that my property manager was stealing from me was because our numbers were not lining up, meaning I would get a statement that didn't have a receipt with it. And I would have receipts that were different than what's on the statement. I would also have expenses that were not approved. Like there was a $1,000 expense. I didn't approve it, but all of a sudden I got this bill. I was like, this is not right. So all the above. And so for me, when I get little yellow flags in my brain coming up, like, hey, there's something concerning here, I really try my best to pay attention to those. And so after so long of just time and time again, of just literally all my income being eaten up, I had to change it out. So what I do now is I find a property manager. The property manager, think of like a football team. The number one person on your team, I don't care. I mean, your team's great. Like you have lots of players, 22 players, 11 on offense, 11 on defense. But the number one player is your quarterback. Like by far, that's literally your captain of everything. They help you score. They help you to protect you. They keep you on the field. That is the same thing with your property manager. A lot of my students, they'll say, hey, Dustin, I found a great city, lots of good inventory, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to make passive income. And they say, I already have 5 realtors looking for properties for me. I said, no, stop. Realtors are a dime a dozen. Now, I apologize if anybody's a realtor, they get offended at that, but they are. There's literally lots and lots of realtors. But how many property managers are there? There's very, very few. And of those who are actually good, even fewer than that. So what I would suggest for you guys is to interview more property managers to see if you have the best one. So if you're getting started, if somebody's getting started, what I would suggest is if you find a great city to invest in where you can make passive income, you want to interview 6 or more different property managers, like a lot of property managers, and interview them multiple times. Remember that convenience store analogy? Well, let's say you built everything up. You had a bank account, you had a cash registry, you had customers, you had inventory, all in the business. And then you grab somebody off the street that said they're a manager and said, hey, you got a pulse. Come on in here, manage my money, manage my customers, manage my inventory, manage my business, manage my employees. Well, that would be very, very problematic. Like it could go wrong. No, what you would do is you would interview them before you hire them. Same thing with property managers. What I suggest, interview as many property managers as you can and interview them multiple times. And here's a quick tip. Texting is not interview. Email is not interview. Phone calls are interviews. You might be able to get them on Zoom, but more than likely they're too busy to get on Zoom. But phone calls are interviews, and interview them multiple times and ask them similar questions. So what you're going to find out is, and here's somebody like you might be thinking of the question, like, how do you know if you got a right property manager? For me, my criteria is first communication. If they can't communicate well with me, if they don't sound like they're experienced, if they can't even call me back before they have my business, if they can't do that, then it's going to be hard for them to call me or hard for me to get them to call me back when they have my money. So communication is number one. Do they call me back in time? Do they call me back within 24 hours? That's a big one. Next one, that's just gets them in the door as potentially being a property manager. Next one is trustworthiness. When you're talking to somebody on the phone, you can more than I think everybody has a decent judge, can be a decent judge of character. Like you might just be thinking, man, this person just doesn't, nothing's adding up, or it's not really adding up right, or I just get a weird sense about this person. That goes a long way. On top of that, if they don't answer your questions properly, like all my students, I give them a list of 22 questions that they need to ask and the answers of what they should reply, these property managers. And if you go through them and they don't have the right answers and they're hemming and hawing and they don't really know their stuff, then that trustworthiness kind of goes, and experience goes on along with that. So calling for references, seeing if they have other landlords that are working with them, so you could talk to them as well. But for me, communication, trustworthiness, and experience, if they have those 3 after multiple interviews, then, and here's another tip. I love what we do for hiring anybody in life is we hire slow, but we fire fast. So we hire slow, we take our time, we make sure they're going to be a good fit in our business. But once we know they're not a good fit, we may give them a second chance. But as soon as they're not a good fit, we fire them. We just let them go. I do that in all my businesses because I learned the hard way that you don't want to do the opposite. You don't want to hire fast and fire slow. Do the opposite. It'll make everybody's life better. But that's what I would suggest is look over your property management agreement, make sure that's the way you want it. And then look at another quick tip I'll give you. Have a minimum that they need to be required to talk to you about. So let's say it's $250 is the minimum. Anything below that, they can go ahead and make a change. That might be a little high because they might be nickel and diming you. It might be $100 as the minimum. For my property manager, I've been with them for a while. They've been with me for a while. So it's like $200 is the minimum. So anything below that, go ahead and take care of that. They do really, really well. They don't nickel and dime me. But it might even be any time you spend any money on my property for repairs, you clear it with me. Now, here's the big thing. Who cares about your money more than you? Nobody cares about your money more than you. Your property managers, they might say they care about your money, but they don't compared to how much you could do. You care about it. So what I suggest is you also get to know your market. You get to know how much it's going to cost to change out a water heater, how much it's going to cost, like $1 per square foot, or for painting or flooring, whatever it might be. You need to know your market so that when they come back with you a quote, you'll be automatically thinking, well, that's too much. I'll give you an example. One of my property managers came back and say, hey, we got a quote for this water heater, $1,600. Like $1,600? That's ridiculous. It, like maybe 5 years ago was like $800, maybe $700. Right now with this market, it should be about $1,000, maybe $1,100 at most. Get me another quote. So all the above, like we need to basically know how to manage our property manager and watch over our money. And then eventually, hopefully they're going to give you the business. You're going to give, well, let me say this. You also need to give them the business rules, processes, and procedures in place so that they run your business the way you want them to run it, not the way they run other landlords. In fact, I give all my property managers the business processes and systems and procedures so that if they run other landlords' properties differently, I don't care. Do it for how they want it. But my properties, you run it this way. And then, like, dollar amount minimum to when you evict, when you do a 3-day notice, all that sort of stuff. You give them these systems and processes and procedures, and they follow it. And when they don't follow it, you hold their feet to account, hold their feet to the fire, and then hold them accountable to actively doing it right.
Yeah, totally. I think here's what I'll say about property managers. That you were absolutely right about the fact that they definitely don't care about your money as much as you do. And there's so much going on. I think about how much is going on with our portfolio, just in general, like how many times there's calls about it. And you multiply that by the amount of properties that they manage, which is like, I think our property manager has 400 properties under management. I can imagine that their days are just filled with putting out fires. That's what they do. So there's no possible way that they can track or keep an eye on your money the way that you could. And I do think that, the fact that some property managers have like a maintenance, they do take money off the top of maintenance is interesting. I found a lot of them do that. And it's actually like a line item on their budget. Like they make money off of this. So I wouldn't say it's in their best interest for you to have maintenance, because eventually you're just going to take the property away. But I've noticed with our property manager that, again, they're really good people, but if it's up to them, they're probably taking the first quote, right? Like we had to redo our floors and we got a quote for $13,000. And then we got another one after going back and forth for a while for $7,500. And it's like, if we would have just been too busy to ask the questions, you're wasting $6,000. And even the fact that we had to get them done was a surprise to us. So I guess I say all that to say is that the vetting process is extremely, extremely important. And we still think hiring a property manager is the best thing for you to scale your business, because it's very hard to manage yourself. But I'll give you one quick. Yeah. Oh, you're
100% right. Like that's something that I had to learn the hard way, but then I figured out actually how to find the right ones, but then manage them well. So I'll give you also another tip too. When you are having, definitely have multiple quotes. For me, if it's over $1,000, property manager, you better be giving me at least 2 or 3 quotes. If it's over $5,000, you better give me multiple, like lots, like 4 quotes. And it's not just the money, but it's also different eyeballs looking at the problem. One person might be saying, well, just replace the entire furnace. Another person might say, well, you know what? You don't need to replace it. I know this problem. It's just this little $20 part. It's happened to me many times. $20 part, we'll fix it. And it'd be $100 for the call. And well, that saved me a ton of money. So with that, what I would suggest is actually, this goes for everything in the real estate investing business. Everything is negotiable. If it's working with a title company, if it's buying a property, rent, finding a right property manager, everything is negotiable. So in your property management agreement, before you sign it, if you see something in there you don't like, literally say, hey, can we take this out? I don't like that you charge me, and some property managers even charge if it's not rented. They'll say, where's a minimum of $50 or whatever it might be if it's not rented? Like, no, I don't want to pay for that. Your job is to make me money. If you're not making me money, I'm not going to pay you any money. Can we cross that out? If they don't, I move on. Same thing with that 10%. Say, hey, property manager, I don't want to pay that 10%. I don't think it's necessary. Would you line item it out? You could always ask. Worst they can do is say no, and you move on to find somebody else.
Sure. I want to talk about maybe a specific deal. If you could break down some numbers for us on, maybe it's pick a more recent one, I would say, just because I think it kind of goes to the times and what we're dealing with now as we move into 2023. Do you have a deal that you could potentially walk us through, maybe the down payment, what the expenses were on it, what it cash flows, maybe how much it's gone up in value, how much it's cash flowing now. Kind of some just in and out details to paint a picture of what your portfolio looks like.
And on the same token, also how you found the deal, like what market, because I think a lot of people, you mentioned a bunch of different markets, and as long as it fits your buy box. So I'd like to go into that too. So it's kind of like all encompassing on like how someone could do this. Put a little bow on it for us, please.
Yeah, totally. So I want to also give you like the general idea of how to find the right good city that has good inventory, but I'll tell you the specific. So even like one more recent, I bought a property in Houston, and I think it was they were asking like $200,000 for the property. And I talked them down to $150,000. Like it got a really good discount, which was terrific on top of that. And then being blessed with lots of properties, you make a lot of cash flow. And then I'm also pretty frugal too. So I had plenty of money. So I borrowed a little bit of money, private money, and then I had my own cash, and I bought that property for cash. In fact, it was the type of property that needed to be all cash because the septic system wasn't working and banks won't lend if it's not livable. So I had to fix the septic. But anyways, I bought it for $150,000 cash, my money as well as private money, and then fixed it up. I think we put $15,000 into the property, maybe 20 at most, because the septic system was probably like $8,000, $9,000. But they eventually got it fixed up. We're into it, maybe let's say $170,000. And then after probably, I want to say it was like 6 months, because the seasoning period is usually 6 months for banks to get, refinance. I pulled out, I want to say it was like $180,000. So I pulled out even $10,000 more than I had into the property to buy the next property to keep continuing that. But that was what most recently buying that property. Now that property is, I think it's making me probably about that's a little too much. Maybe $500 a month in passive income, because I bought it so well. The rents have just gone up over the last couple of years. It's maybe even close to $500 or $600 a month in passive income. So with that, what I love also is to share the type of inventory that a city needs to have. Like Houston's a good city, but there are so many great cities. In fact, what I love doing with my students is showing them how easy it is to find good cities. So we find cities that have good inventory. Remember, we're building a business. You don't want to build a business where there's only one property that you can buy, and that's one piece of inventory, but you can't continue to grow. So we find good cities that have good inventory, the right types of homes we can buy, that we could rent for $250 a month, that have lower prices. And then we find the right property manager. So my suggestion is finding a city that has really good inventory, like I said, the right types of homes that you can make passive income on it with a lower price. But with that, what you do is then you build the business. So you don't start looking for properties and buy the first property. We build the business first so that we can then buy the property as a piece of inventory and put it in there.
Cool. So I'm curious about you've been investing for a long time. You mentioned 2006 to now. The market has shifted so much. And this is why I love real estate, because there's a lot of investors who talk about, I don't invest for cash flow. I can break even on properties and wait till they appreciate and hold them for years, right? Some people do that. That's not how we do it, right? But we're also not buying in areas that aren't going to appreciate at all. But when we were talking before the show, you mentioned that you are going to hold these properties forever, okay? And you're going to pass them down to your kids. Therefore, you're not too concerned about the appreciation, because you're just looking for the income to replace, your job's income, so you can be financially free. So what happened in 2008 to your properties? Did they not go down in value because of where you bought them? And then how do you feel about that outlook translating to now, where everyone's saying we're going to a recession? Some people think the sky is falling. I don't happen to think that way, but I'm just an eternal optimist. So how does 2008 your properties, how does that reflect today?
Yeah. So I will say that no matter what, if the market goes up, down, or sideways, we make money. That's the biggest thing. Is when 2008, when it crashed, of course, the values went down. They probably cut in half. That's a bummer. But like I said, I'm going to keep making money on these. So why would I sell them? So I didn't need to worry about that. Now, from 2008 to 2022 now into 2023, the only thing that I look for is passive income. But on top of that, the appreciation is great, because like I said, I get more equity than pull out to buy more properties. But with that, what I'm seeing between 2008 to now, there's a little different nuances. I don't know if it's going to crash. I don't know if that's I know that
I just figured out. Yeah, I don't know either, but I just I like talking about it with people who have been in the market or been in the game for a long time.
Yeah, the biggest thing right now is I'm I'm seeing the obviously interest rates going up. That means homes are going to stay on the market longer because sellers are notorious for, oh man, this 6 months ago I could have got 20% more, which they just keep holding on. So you see inventory going up. I see homes staying on the market even longer, say 45, 90 days and even longer because their sellers are holding on to. Eventually it's going to break and it's going to start correcting even more than it has now. But on top of that, I am so excited. Like people might be saying, well, Dustin, are you like upset interest rates are going up? I'm like, no, I've been waiting for this. I'm so excited because here's my opinion. In the next, let's say 5 years, this might be, I'm not saying it will, but it might be all over like 2008 all over again in 2010, where that was one of the best times ever. I didn't have enough money to buy the property. I didn't have enough knowledge. I've been looking for another time like 2010 all over again. And it seems like it's coming because of inflation to interest rates. I mean, the wars and possible nuclear wars. You have jobless rates. Like I just read that there's so many jobs that are being lost, like so many layoffs now. In fact, even just the mortgage departments of big banks, they're laying off thousands of people. And so I'm seeing the economy going south with that. It's going to make it the best buying opportunity ever. But yeah, of course, my values went down, but now they're literally triple from back. Like they from what I bought it for, now it's probably double from when I bought it for, but it's back up. And so what I'm looking at is if I only invest for passive income, generational wealth, then I'm literally secured because I'm making money every single month. And when it goes back up, I'll refinance and pull the cash out to buy more properties.
Cool. So as we wind down the show, I did want to have like one last question and kind of like I should have put a bow on this earlier, but basically talking about your syndications, right? You did a lot of long-term buy and hold, and now, you have your portfolio of 30 plus units. How did you transition into the syndication field and become more passive on things?
Well, so real estate, like residential 4 units and below, that's my bread and butter. I literally do it in my sleep and say, I literally dream. And I'm like, oh, I just bought a property when I didn't because it's a dream. But I do it so much. It's just like ingrained in me. It's my bread and butter. I could do it easily. The great thing about, and this also came out of podcasting and having a YouTube channel and meeting other expert investors that have different ways. And I never wanted to really get into syndication, to invest in a syndication, but I have made really good friends from either being on their podcast and my vice versa. I have a conference now that my syndication friend comes and they speak about syndications and how to do syndications. And so I also had extra money. It's like, well, I don't have any deals right now. We have some extra money. Let's go ahead and put it in these syndication deals. Now, the big thing, I'll quickly say, I'm a buy and hold investor. The downside about syndications is within 3 to 5 years, they want to exit it. And so it's incumbent on another syndicator to raise more money and buy it for more than you bought it for. Well, what if that happens? And what if it happens like now where the interest rates are going up and up and up? Well, they can't buy the property for more than it's worth. I like buy and hold personally, but with syndications, it's because I met so many other great expert investors. And I said, hey, you're doing a great job. Let me invest with you. Now, it's a blessing when you have more passive income, you have more money coming in than you really need. You're like, oh, my expenses are covered. My house is paid off. I'm really frugal. So that also helps. But we had extra money. So I'm like, well, instead of sitting in here, I know with inflation, it's losing 10% every year. Let me put it into a syndication. So all the above. I just love saying to my storage units. I love storage units, mobile home parks, Airbnb. Like they're all great ways to invest. You just need to know how to do it without losing money. And there are experts at it all over the place that literally know how to do that without losing money. And so I just invest with them.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a couple recently who was talking about, we do some YouTube automation in Amazon stores. We were talking about the prospect of getting into some of that. And they were talking about, they're like, I'd really love to get into real estate. What's the best way you think we can get started? And I just kind of talked them through the situation. They said, yeah, I just had my third kid. We both have full-time jobs. And I said, unless you guys are going to become experts, which you could, totally, anybody can do this. But unless you're going to commit yourself to doing that, why don't you find an operator who's way better than you are, take that $50,000, at $75,000, $100,000 that you have saved up and invest in somebody else who's better than you are. You're an investor, but your ego isn't too big to invest with other people, right? We're investors. I'm not suggesting that
Absolutely.
I'm the best investor. I'm not even suggesting I'm in the top 10% or 15 or 20% of really good investors. I feel like we're good at meeting people, right? Who have a higher skill set and are better at what they do than we are. And then we kind of can join forces. So that's why we love syndications. And we have we're meeting with operators now to kind of vet them to find more for us to go into and to share with our network. So I love the syndication space. I think that there's always somebody that's better than you. And if you find the right alignment of values, then why not join forces there? But as we wind down the show, the second to last segment of our show is called the Core Four. Ryan, do you want to hit us off with the first question here?
Sure, let's do it. So the first question of the Core Four, we'll start you off easy, is what is the book that has made the biggest impact on your life so far? That can be business, real estate, just mentality, but we're looking for a book that someone can read and that really will help transform their life.
Well, I'll start with one that's by far, but I'll give you the second one, which goes more in line with what your question is. The Bible by far is literally, I read it literally two times a day, at least 2 times a day. I've been reading it every day for 25 years now, ever since I've been a Christian. But literally read the Bible. That's has transformed me the most. In fact, that's what's got me to be more of a servant as opposed to being self-centered and trying to make as much money. So the Bible by far. But outside of that, what's got me in business so much more. I mean, Rich Dad Poor Dad was really, really good. But I would say How to Win Friends and How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Outstanding book. I've literally read it at least 4 or 5 times because I found, I think, Corey, I think you might have said it, but like it's networking with people and helping other people get what they want. And if people don't like you, then they're not going to work with you. So what we want to do is learn how to help people, how to win friends and influence people by Dale Carnegie has been fantastic for me.
Yeah, great book. And the title kind of threw me off when I first read it because I'm like, I'm not trying to win anybody. I want to befriend and be genuine, but it is actually a very good book. Just kind of the art of relationships, conversation, networking, and then, like I said, being authentic, being yourself and making and attracting people to you. So great book. Second question is, let's say Ryan, I gave you $50,000, just tax-free. We're feeling pretty generous today. We gave you $50,000. We're ending the year, right? So knowing what you know now about what you know about investing, what would you do with that $50,000? Or maybe you wouldn't invest. Maybe you'd spend it on a vacation if you want to let some of that frugality go a little bit. What would you do with $50,000 if we hand it over?
Oh, definitely. By far, invest in real estate. That's the number one thing. Now, a slight second would maybe be buying gold because I see the inflation just destroying our dollar. That might be another one. But or guns and ammo. That's also worth a lot. But real estate, by far, real estate is one of the best things. In fact, I'd look to find maybe a fourplex. Buy a fourplex with that money because the $50,000 will go a long way in the Midwest to find some really good properties.
Well, so you heard it here first, folks. There's still deals in the Midwest. I don't know. It's not somewhere we've looked in Ohio. We kind of found that it just didn't fit with like our lifestyle and the way that we wanted to build our portfolio. But there's a ton of people killing it in a ton of different markets, especially people that live all over the country and get with it, people. It's 2022, so you can invest anywhere. So Dustin says the Midwest.
Cool. So question 3 is, what has been your biggest mistake you've made throughout your investing journey and how have you learned from it?
Biggest mistake, I would say, is not building the business first. And I didn't know that was something I needed to do. But with that came so many problems because I didn't have the right people in place. I didn't have the experts in place. I had people that were shady and crooked. But in building a business, you find the right people and you hire them slow and fire them fast. And so that was by far the number one mistake, was doing that. Now, there could be other little small ones like, I bought 2 houses at the same time and I didn't know that in this specific county, it's not just city, but the county, if the electricity has been off for over a year, then you have to get it re-certified by the city or the county. And then you have to do all the new electrical, which cost me $3,000-$4,000 each house. There's little things like that, but getting experts will tell you, hey, this is what's going to happen. So definitely hire experts, building the business first.
Cool. What you just said made me think of something that when I said investing in the Midwest, and you're talking about all these expenses, you're like, yeah, a new hot water heater, $1,100. Like I would die to pay $1,100 for a new hot water heater in the Northeast. And I think that comes with it. Like the houses are cheaper, the labor's a little bit cheaper. So that kind of plays into factor. Like the way you pay for a new hot water heater to get somebody to get it to you in New York City. Like you just think about the logistics of it. There's a reason why everything's more expensive there. So you're probably going to pay, I don't know, $2,000, right? But in a Midwest suburb, it's ease of travel. So I'm not sure what made me think of that, but it's kind of the expenses there because I'd love to pay a lot less. And maybe that's a reason to invest in different areas. But anyway, question 4 is, so Dustin, what do you want your legacy to be? Like, what you've done, you were financially free by 37. You did it over a 6-7 year time frame. It's commendable, and it's not easy. So, like, the question is, what is your why? What gets you out of bed every day, and what do you want your legacy to be when you leave this place, so to speak?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll say it by this. Everybody in their life, they should have and strive for these 4 different legacies. Number 1's a money legacy. I'm blessed to have that money legacy taken care of. Enough money to do and buy whatever you want. The second one, the money leads into the second one, which is a time legacy. So leaving a time legacy where you have enough time to do whatever you want. You have the money and then the time. The third one is a relationship legacy. So I'm blessed to have the money, which allows me the time. The time then allows you to have the relationships, building your families, your friends, people at church, and service and all that sort of stuff of your community. So money leads into time leads into relationships. Then once you have these 3 covered, the last one, and this is what I'm blessed to be at, is a service legacy. And the service legacy now is where I want to help as many people as I can in any way. In fact, my first goal was to quit my job in 10 years. Check, I got that. The second goal was, this was a bad goal. I said, I want to make $1 million a year in all my businesses. It was just a quantitative goal just to make sure I could hit something. But that was such a horrible goal. In fact, I was turned off by the goal because I'm not driven by money. Then I realized what I love with the podcasting to coaching to everything that I do. Now, my goal is to help 1 million people achieve financial independence by investing in real estate, by starting businesses, by anything like that, because I found that more people that I serve in this life, the better my life gets and the better other people's life gets. So I guess in the very, very end, what I would love, the legacy I'd love to leave is a legacy of service and loving God and loving others.
Love that. Wonderful. Cool. So last drop.
So the last drop is the final question of the show. And this question is, if you could go back to younger Dustin, let's say 18-year-old self, what advice would you give him knowing what you know now?
Ooh, it would absolutely be passive income. Invest, or not just invest for, but create businesses that make passive income. I had no idea. I was like 24, 25 when I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. I was like, there's another way. I was just following the same stupid advice that we all get is, the whole job, getting a job and then working 9 to 5, getting paid for that hour that you work. Instead of that, getting paid over and over again for the one time that you work. So by far, it is getting passive income and creating businesses that have passive income.
Awesome, man. So thanks so much, Dustin, for coming on. We really appreciate your time. We love your story. We know you have a conference, Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference. Just if people love your story, they want to hear more about you, they want to connect, maybe join your network, learn from you, from your coaching. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I have a free course I just love to give out. I just want to see more people, get financially independent. Would you mind if I give that out to everybody?
100%, man.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So I'll give you my course. So literally walk you through everything, even much more so, how to build a business, scale a business, and all that stuff. If you text the word rental, RENTAL, to 33777, rental to 33777, I'll literally give it to you. It'll show you everything. If you go to also, instead of that, if you go to masterpassiveincome.com/free course, all one word, masterpassiveincome.com/free course, I'll literally give it to you. You can also find me. I have my own podcast. It's really a solo show where I just me trying to coach this out, but Master Passive Income, you look up that as well. YouTube channel. You can also follow me on Instagram. I don't really do a whole lot other than post my, things I like to do, but you can reach out to me there. I love chatting with people on Instagram, but it's the Dustin Heiner. That's the handle. I'm not that arrogant. It's the only handle I could come up with, THE Dustin Heiner. But I love just seeing people change their life by investing in real estate, by creating businesses and creating passive income. But man, it's been great being on the show and having this time to really chat about real estate and business and life.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. I hope people got some value from this. I think they did, and then if they can get more connected with you, there's even more behind the curtain. So thanks so much for coming on, Dustin. We really enjoyed your time.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in this week to the Weekly Juice Podcast. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, and share with friends. The more ratings we get, the more ears we'll get on our show, and in turn, we'll be able to provide you with more high-quality guests. You can also find us on Instagram at weeklyjuicepod, where we post daily tips and tricks and document our own journey towards financial freedom. Make sure to tune in every Wednesday to get your weekly juice.